Hello everyone, this is Jacopo, CEO of Dynamite Studios, finally back with a new video development update for Fractured Online. Today we're talking about Endgame Changer, the first major update to the game since our early access launch. As you know, we've been live 24/7 since November last year. We've released multiple patches since then, but they were mostly focused on bug fixes and introducing some minor changes, while now we have a really massive update, which is the product of 3 months of work from our 8 people team. So what can 8 people do in 3 months? Let's find out. Generally speaking, Endgame Changer can be split into 5 parts, which we are going to cover into multiple videos. First of all, there are changes to basic game mechanics, balancing, loot, user interface, quality of life. This is not content, it's the foundation of the game that has to be as good as possible so that we can safely introduce more content later on. Then there are changes to progression, to PvE content, equipment enchanting, gathering of primary energy. We are adding spectral creatures that roam the world in the night and more. Then there are potions with which we are finally completing the alchemy shop. Mind that potions are not something that you drink during combat, but outside of combat, because you need to stop and rest, and they last for 30 minutes. So you use them directly from your inventory. Then we have mounts. As you know, if you have been following the development of Fractured Online, we've introduced horses long ago, but it's always been a very simplistic implementation. While now we have 2 new types of mounts, one that can be found on Arboreus and one that can be found on the planet of Syndesia. They have unique characteristics, and each mount has meaningful attributes now that are randomized when you capture it. So looking for the best specimen is now a thing with Endgame Changer. Last but not least, we have fortresses, which are the first group PvP content that guilds can take part in on a daily basis besides city warfare. In this video, I'm going to cover the first point, which is a brief overview of what has changed in the foundation of the game. Now, as you know, Fractured Online is a complex game with many different mechanics, attributes, modifiers. In order to make things easier for new players, we have, first of all, reworked the character menu. It's a lot more concise now, there is no need to scroll anymore, and there are detailed tooltips for every modifier. Speaking of modifiers, there are 3 new key ones: physical power, magical power, and healing power. The first one increases the damage of your weapons and the effectiveness of your combat abilities. The second increases the damage of your staffs and the effectiveness of your magical abilities. And the last one, the effectiveness of your restoration abilities, which is all support and healing abilities, and also the damage of your healer staff, which is a new item that is being introduced in Endgame Changer. These modifiers are given respectively by strength, intelligence, and wisdom. Overall, the effect of all these 6 attributes has changed, except from strength and intelligence, which are more or less warrior-oriented and mage-oriented. All builds can benefit from any of the other attributes. Aside from attributes, there are a ton of other changes, way too many to include them all in this video. We do have a very detailed document listing them all. It's linked in the description below, so do check that out in case. It's over 20 pages long, so it's quite a read. Together with attributes and modifiers, we have introduced several changes to talents as well, and the talent tree is finally complete. Obviously, the first ring of the talent tree has been updated to be consistent with the new effect of attributes, but there's also some new ones, such as these 2, slow metabolism and refreshed, related to rest and satiety, and many others that have been changed all around. Take this one, for example, that gives you a 10% cooldown reduction on your ultimate physical abilities. Speaking of abilities, we've dismissed the concept of memory cost when creating presets. Instead, you can now add 8 abilities to a preset, which is much simpler, and out of those, 2 at most can be ultimates. The concept of ultimate is likely familiar to you if you've played MOBAs. They are abilities with long cooldown, high mana cost that can have a big impact on the fight when they are used, so it makes sense that you can only take 2 for balancing reasons. Another very important topic covered by Endgame Changer is quality of life. One of the most common criticisms to Fractured Online has always been the somewhat clunky feeling of combat. including targeting issues, abilities failing to go off for seemingly no reason, targets being reported as out of sight when they are not, and more. It's hard to show this on video, but we've worked hard on all of these issues, on latency compensation, and in general to make combat feel smooth. I can tell you it definitely feels a lot better now. Overall, small quality of life changes are something that you're going to see all over the place in Endgame Changer. For example, we've reworked how the detection of a hidden character works, and this comes with its own quality of life tweak in that you can now see who can detect you and how far, and that was just one example. So this was all for this video. I've barely scratched the surface on all the changes here. I could rave about the viability of more builds in PvE and PvP, about the reworked full set bonuses of armor, but I will stop here, otherwise the video is going to last way too long. Stay tuned for the next videos since we've got potions, mounts, fortresses and a lot more to cover. Cheers!